This segment is called Squad Goals.
Yes.
And the idea here is, because, sometimes you see, on hashtag couple goals on Instagram, something like that, or squad goals when they're doing, that kind of thing. So the idea is are you comfortable drafting players from the same team? So Jamar Chase and T. Higgins for a second. We'll get into that in a second. So the idea there is, and I always say this, I get this question all the time, there's obviously a popular theory in fantasy football, especially if you're in DFS or you're in any sort of best ball in terms of correlation and trying to stack a team, drafting a quarterback and his wide receiver or his tight end, drafting a defense with a running back because they correlated stats, right? If the quarterback has a good game, chances are his number one wide receiver does, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
All right. So, but the question becomes hey, listen, I get this all the time. Aaron Rodgers is my quarterback and Aaron Jones is my running back. Am I screwed?
Yeah.
And in that case, no, you're not. I assure you, Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones don't know that they're on your fantasy team, and they don't care. Yeah. We expect Aaron Rodgers to have a really good year. We expect Aaron Jones to have a really good year.
Yep.
Your job is to score the most points possible, and I don't think you need to avoid players on the same team. I also don't necessarily, unless it's unless it's a stacking situation. I'm not necessarily targeting it. But I want the best players available. And if they happen to play on the same team, they happen to play on the same team. And let's start with Jamar Chase, who is going as, a top 3 wide receiver, and T. Higgins, who is going in the 3rd round as a top 10 to 12-ish wide receiver. You comfortable with both guys on your team?
Definitely, because I think it's a bet not on those guys individually, it's a bet on Joe Burrow, really. And the question to me here is, what does Zach Taylor want to do? Deep down, what does he want to do? Because I think he showed a lot of signs last year of conservatism in play calling. I think they've used Joe Mixon too much, and then at the end of the season...
Except in the Super Bowl on 3rd down,
yeah,
when
exactly.
they didn't use him enough.
But he's Samaje Perine, the great Samaje Perine. But I think that if Zach Taylor, if he wants to run the ball, if that's what he really wants to do, if in his heart of hearts he really wants to run on 1st down, and if he wants to confiscate Joe Burrow's chef's hat, then I'd be worried. But I think that was more about Burrow's knee and his health, because by the end of the season, Burrow's throwing for 500 yards. Jamar Chase is putting up 266 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Chiefs. So I'd be buying into that passing game, and I'd be fine with those two guys.
The thing about T. Higgins, I think we all know about Jamar Chase. And I don't want to say we don't know about T. Higgins, but look, Jamar Chase had kind of the highlight plays, the 75-yard touchdown pass, in receptions, and he was such an explosion last year. T. Higgins had 110 targets last year. He actually just 18 less than Jamar Chase, and over the last 7 games, I want to say Higgins actually out-targeted Jamar Chase, right? He had a higher reception per target percentage than Jamar Chase. 67% for Higgins, 63% for Jamar Chase. They're both really freaking good. We expect this team to throw, and even if it's a little bit more of a balanced offense here, both guys are going to get theirs. I'm with you. I think I have both players as top 10 wide receivers. I expect both players to finish inside the top 10. So yes, if you get an opportunity to get 2 top 10 wide receivers on your team, you're doing it, and you don't care if they both play for the same team.
Yeah. With Chase specifically, when we're pricing out markets, what we're doing is we're looking at what's sustainable. And Chase catching 70-yard touchdown passes every week, not sustainable.
Correct.
What is going to be sustainable, though, is he's going to get more targets than he did last season. So it's going to balance out a bit.
Yeah, and also, by the way, he's just freaking insanely talented.
He is.
He's really good.
He's quite good at the football.
Yes,
Jamar Chase.
Exactly. Hashtag analysis.
Another 2 guys who are pretty good, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle
I've
on
heard
the
of
Dolphins.
both of them.
Yeah, a little less optimistic about their quarterback situation, but would you be okay having both of those guys on your team?
I actually wouldn't be. So I actually, I'm okay with one of them. I think it's going to be hard to figure that both guys match the production from last year. I'm nervous about Waddle, and I know a lot of people really like it. But last year in terms of Jalen Waddle, think about that Dolphins team. They had no one else.
Yep.
Waddle had a massive target share, right? So Waddle had 5 different games with less than 10 fantasy points, right? I mean, there was he was great from week 11 through 16, a 4-game stretch of 18 or more fantasy points. But again, just a massive target share. I believe a 25% target share. I could get wrong. Blake, correct me if I'm wrong on that number off the top of my head. But he just had a massive 26. I'm being told 26% target share, and that's I mean, like, that is close to Cooper Kupp levels. Like, I just don't think with Tyreek Hill, with Cedric Wilson, with Mike Gesicki, with Chase Edmonds out of the backfield, Raheem Mostert, like, they're going to spread the ball around. Like, think about the San Francisco offense. We don't know what Mike McDaniel's offense is going to look like, but the best we can do is say, hey, look at what they did in San Francisco, because we think it's going to look pretty close to that. And last year, like, they had one guy. They had Debo. Yep. And they would and then you got, Kittle would get some, and whatever. Brandon Ayuk would get some, and the running backs would get some. But the only guy with a massive target share in that 49ers offense was Debo Samuel. Yep. And so you're like, well, one guy's going to get that should get a massive target share here, and I think it's going to be Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and also, if you're buying into 2 receivers on your team, then you need to have immense confidence in the quarterback situation in the passing game. And Tua has a lot of upside because of what his offensive line has been in the past. It's been unviable. And also what he produced in college, there is certainly upside there. But if you want to go all in on Tua, I'm not sure that's the best play until you see a little bit more.
Because, by the way, again, think about the 49ers offense. It was not a high-octane offense. No. It was more of a grinded-out, play-good defense kind of. And by the way, that might have been because they had Jimmy Garoppolo quarterback.
Yeah.
But do we think Tua Tagovailoa is that much better than Garoppolo at this point of their careers? I'm not convinced.
It might be worse.
You're right, exactly. Yeah. We just don't know. Tua's been in a bad situation the last couple of years, so I think the jury is still out on whether he can be a franchise quarterback. But in terms of fantasy, again, we don't know. This offense might be slower paced. There's going to be a target spread around here. Both guys, it's a new situation. We just don't know. I think Jalen Waddle is insanely talented. I don't mind taking a stab at having a piece of the Dolphins offense. Yeah. But to your point, I don't know that I want to have a massive amount of the Dolphins offense. And honestly, if you're like, give me one Dolphin to roster, give me Chase Edmonds because of where he's going, because of the money they paid him, and because I know how Mike McDaniel uses his running backs based on what we saw in San Francisco. I actually think Chase Edmonds is my favorite in terms of both ADP and potential upside in Miami. All right, let's move on to the Colts. Jonathan Taylor and wide receiver Michael Pittman. Now, the question to me on Pittman here, he's going as wide receiver 12 on Yahoo. So that is, right, 36th overall. So, I mean, he is pricey. Are you okay with having both these guys on your team?
I am.
Hashtag squad goals.
Yeah, I am, because I think that you're fine with Taylor. There's no question marks about Taylor. He's the number one pick. That's fine. Yeah. So it's really a question about Pittman. And Matt Ryan with his number one receiver, there's always been a good record there. And there's still no one who I'm worried about eating into Pittman's share. Who's their number 2 wideout going to be? It's going to be Alec Pierce. It's going to be Harris Campbell. Not worried about these guys.
Right.
Matt Ryan will be as good as Carson Wentz, maybe a little bit better. And we saw that Carson Wentz could already support an excellent Michael Pittman season, while Jonathan Taylor was having substantially more rushing attempts than any other player in the league. So I would be in on the duo.
Good graphic for those of you watching at home. You can see this, but if you're listening to the podcast, we've got a graphic up that shows Matt Ryan's number 1 target of the last 7 seasons, and every one of his number 1 targets, Julio Jones, the 2020 Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts last year, all of them have finished top 7 in the NFL in terms of targets, except for 2016 Julio Jones, in which he was 17th, but that was a year that he was hurt. So 6 of the last 7 seasons, Matt Ryan's number 1 wide receiver, and we know it's going to be Michael Pittman this year, has been top 7 in the NFL in terms of targets. He had 129 targets last year. The talent is obvious if you just watch the film. Yeah. So, again, it just sort of depends. Wide receiver 12 is a little pricey for me. It's a little high. Having said that, though, I mean, he's clearly a top 15 wide receiver, so I'm nitpicking a little bit. And I'm with you. We agree here. If Michael Pittman's your number 1 wide receiver, especially if you went running back, I'm totally good with it. Would absolutely be fine with having both of them on the same team.
Yep. Okay, next one. Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Probably the most painful situation for fantasy drafters out there. You okay having both of these guys?
I'm okay having both of them, but I don't know that I'm okay starting both of them. Yeah. Like, you'd have to be in a deep league. You'd have to be in a super flex league where you were just like, you know what, I'm getting the Denver running back situation. Like, if you're in a super flex league or a best ball league, I'm totally good with it because you're just like, boom, I'm in on Denver. Yeah. We think the offense can be a lot better with Russell Wilson. We know Javonte Williams has insane talent. Melvin Gordon showed he still had something left in the tank last year. So I'm in. But I sort of feel like if it's a running back by committee, and also obviously if anything were to happen to Williams, Gordon would be the guy, vice versa. So I like it there. So I think but ultimately I think it boils down to roster construction, because if Melvin Gordon is taking the place of somebody else that you might start in your flex, I don't like it. Because I think there are other players going around his ADP that probably have more higher upside. Like, I have to look this up here, but like I think like he's going around like the same area that like Ramondre Stevenson is. Like, give me Ramondre Stevenson like all day, every day over Melvin Gordon. Here, I'm pulling it up real quick, right? So, Melvin Gordon, I take it back. But so here's who's going around Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's going ahead of Dameon Pierce, rather have him. He's going like same basic round as Cordero Patterson, rather have him. He's got the job to himself. Kareem Hunt, I think, has more upside. He's going ahead of Darrell Henderson, ahead of Brian Robinson. I think I'd rather have both those guys that have more upside. Henderson also in a committee, more upside than Melvin. Brian Robinson, a bit of committee. I think he's going to be the starter in Washington. So, I think I don't mind having both of them on the same team, but I would only want to do it again if I'm drafting Melvin Gordon. I get him late enough where he can basically be insurance for me with Javonte Williams.
Yeah, it just doesn't make you feel good if you're going all in on the Denver Broncos running back situation and that's what your team is built around. I think you kind of want to choose one, but there's no good choice because Javonte Williams, he's the guy who obviously has the upside. There have been quotes lately from Melvin Gordon where he's kind of implied that they want to use Javonte Williams more. At the same time, their stats were almost identical last season, and Gordon is going so much later in the draft than Williams. So I just don't feel good about any of it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, both guys were top 20. Both guys were top 20 running backs in points per game among last year. And so we expect, again, the offense it'll be more pass happy with Russell Wilson, but it'll also be in scoring position a lot more.
Yes.
Because we think it'll be better. I actually don't mind Melvin Gordon as a draft pick, especially if you didn't draft Javonte Williams. Because I think the fantasy death of Melvin Gordon's a little bit overblown, even though Melvin Gordon's saying, like, they want Javonte to be the guy. We just don't know how this backfield's going to shake out. But certainly Melvin Gordon is the much less risky pick because he doesn't cost you that much to acquire. Like Javonte Williams at where he's going in ADP, like you need Javonte Williams to be, much closer to the guy that was awesome against Kansas City when Melvin Gordon was out last year than the guy that was literally in a 50-50 timeshare last year. So I feel like I sort of sat on the fence there with that one.
I think it's a fence-sitting kind of one, though. Right?
Yeah.
Because how can you be emphatic and say, I'm all in Javonte Williams, I'm all in Melvin Gordon? It's the most pure 50-50 timeshare in the NFL, just about.
Right. And so we just don't know how it's going to split up this year. Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that's not one that I'm targeting. Like I would love to have Chase or Higgins. I'm good with Taylor or Pittman, to your point. In this particular premise on Williams and Gordon, I don't mind it. But again, like it's not something I would want to target.
No.
I'm because we just have so much unknown about how that gets split up here. Let's move to Minnesota, where Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I'm all in on this. I would love both guys. Like I've talked about this. I think the Vikings offense explodes this year. I think Cousins has a monster year. Justin Jefferson's a no-brainer. He's the second best wide receiver in fantasy. And if a year from now, Jay, if we're talking, and by we I mean me and my new co-host,
you
are
and
talking about like whatever. We've put you on that path to leave the show. But me and whoever my new co-host is, Blake probably, are talking about Justin Jefferson a year from now. Very easily we talk about, number one wide receiver in fantasy, Justin Jefferson, because that's very easily within the range of outcomes for him. But Adam Thielen, it's super weird. This is a guy who last year was the 14th best wide receiver on a points per game basis. 14th. He was a top 15 wide receiver. We think this offense takes a big step up this year. The target tree hasn't expanded yet. Yes, they've got Irv Smith back. Great, that's fine. And KJ Osborne's a nice story from last year. And Dalvin Cook out of the backfield. But it's going to be Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Here's a guy that actually had more touchdowns than Justin Jefferson last year. Right. So Justin Jefferson, 14th best wide receiver on a points per game basis, and he's currently going as wide receiver 30 on Yahoo. He's going 74th overall.
That's
he's being left for dead, and I get it, injuries are a concern, but that's baked into his ADP. I think this is insane.
Yeah.
I got a list for you. Can I give you a list?
Give me a list.
Here's a list of all the wide receivers in the NFL to have at least 10 touchdowns each of the last 2 seasons. Mike Evans, you've heard of him.
Yeah, I know
Devontae Adams.
Familiar with his work
Sure.
too.
DK Metcalf.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
That's the list.
Yeah.
That's the list.
Look, I'm okay with having both of these guys on my team because it includes Justin Jefferson as one of them. So it doesn't really matter who the second guy is. But yeah, Thielen, I think the thing is, one, he was banged up last year and he still produced. I don't think the baseline is that he's more banged up this year. And then secondly, I'd just be all in on the Minnesota passing game in general because it's being brought into the 21st century.
Right.
We're going to have they've got the internet in Minnesota now in their passing game. There's going to be no running Dalvin Cook first, second down, and then Kirk Cousins throwing 3rd and 7 to the tight end. I think that there's huge scope for this offense. Look, Justin Jefferson is second favorite for Offensive Player of the Year. He's plus 1,200. We're baking in that he is just about the equal best receiver in the game. Now, we pivot to Baltimore. Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman. I know you're a big Rashad Bateman guy, so I suspect that you're going to be in on this duo.
I am, especially because where they're going, right? Again, I think both guys are productive so far this year. Again, 24% of the targets that were thrown last year are available. Marquise Brown had 146 targets last year, 10th most in the NFL. Some of them are going to go to Mark Andrews. A lot of them are going to go to Rashad Bateman. And we'll see if Demarcus Robinson, does anything here. I think Isaiah Likely, the 4th-round rookie tight end, they play a lot. He's really good. He's an interesting guy, especially if you're in a deeper tight end premium league. Really like him. Really like him for Dynasty. Baltimore plays a lot of 12 personnel. So I think he's going to be the 3rd guy in terms of targets. But yeah, look, even in a more run-heavy offense, they're still going to have to throw the ball. Remember, Lamar's playing for a contract.
Yeah.
Lamar's looking at like what Deshaun Watson got.
Yeah.
And Lamar's like, look, I haven't missed any games. No one's accused me of anything. Right? That guy in my division, he's got over $200 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
Hello,
Lamar.
I've got an MVP title on my resume.
Unanimous.
So Lamar wants to be, and understandably so, wants to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I think he's got a good case. And I think this year, not that he wasn't going to ball out anyway, but I know he was your ride or die.
Yeah.
We talked about him on Monday. So I don't think it's just going to be purely running. They may be a little bit more balanced this year than they were last year when they were 9th in the NFL in pass attempts. But yes, Mark Andrews, is tight end 1, right? So obviously, or he's tight. I have him as my tight end 1. He's going as tight end 2 on Yahoo. You're obviously in on Mark Andrews to get elite production from the position. I love Rashad Bateman. I love the talent, and I just think the opportunity is massive with Marquise Brown now in Arizona.
Yeah, and Lamar threw more than ever last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the best game that any quarterback played last season was the game Lamar Jackson had against the Colts in primetime, where he had 442 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he won that game by himself. And the thing with Rashad Bateman is that, when we're pricing our markets, we put that stuff through the model. We run R scripts. It's like, just watch Rashad Bateman. He's really good. He gets open, and he's going to take a leap. He wasn't healthy all the last season. And Mark Andrews is what he is. He's rock solid. So it'd be totally fine with buying into the Ravens passing game.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.